Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we are cracking open a file that feels a little bit like we're profiling a team of supervillains.
Right.
But, and here's the kicker, we aren't talking about comic book characters, and we definitely aren't talking about criminals locked away in a high-security prison.
No, not at all. In fact, if you look at the research, we're essentially profiling the person sitting in the cubicle next to you.
Oh, wow.
Or the person you matched with on a dating app last night.
Which is a terrifying thought to start the day with. We are talking about people you interact with daily. They could be your boss, your neighbor, or, well, let's hope not, but they could be sleeping in your bed.
It is, yeah. It's a distinct possibility.
We are diving into the Dark Triad. It sounds ominous, doesn't it? Like a secret society or, I don't know, a heavy metal album.
It does, and for good reason. The Dark Triad is a psychological theory that really gained traction after being published by Delroy Paulus and Kevin Williams back in 2002. And it groups together 3 specific, distinct personality traits that are, to put it mildly, offensive.
Offensive personality types. I love that the academic literature just comes out and says it's not challenging or difficult, it's just offensive.
They don't mince words. But the crucial thing we need to establish right at the start of this deep dive, the mission, if you will, is that we are looking at subclinical traits.
Okay.
This is the most important distinction to make before we scare everyone listening.
Okay, let's unpack that immediately. Subclinical means we aren't talking about a medical diagnosis, right?
Sure.
We aren't talking about someone who needs to be institutionalized.
Exactly. When we talk about these traits in the Dark Triad, we aren't talking about someone who has been, formally diagnosed with personality disorder, like antisocial personality disorder, although, as we'll see, they share some DNA. These are non-pathological types found in the general population. These are people who function in society. They hold down jobs, they have relationships, they pay taxes.
Yeah.
But they possess these malevolent qualities.
That makes it almost scarier. They walk among us undiscovered. They are operating within the social contract, but they are breaking the spirit of it constantly.
That's a great way to put it.
So introduce us to the lineup. Who are the 3 members of this triad?
Okay, so first you have narcissism.
The one we all think we know. The selfie taker.
It's deeper than that. I mean, it's about grandiosity, pride, egotism, and a distinct lack of empathy. Then the second member is Machiavellianism.
Which sounds like a political thriller.
It's rooted in that, yes. This is characterized by manipulation, a total indifference to morality, and a calculated focus on self-interest.
Okay.
And finally, the third member, often considered the darkest of the bunch, psychopathy.
And what does that involve?
This is more about impulsivity, thrill-seeking, selfishness, callousness, and remorselessness.
So just to give us a shorthand here, we have the entitled egotist, the calculating schemer, and the callous thrill seeker.
That's a good shorthand, yeah. And while they are distinct, and we will break down exactly how they differ, what binds them together into this triad is a specific interpersonal style. The research calls it a callous manipulative style.
Basically a way of interacting with people that lacks warmth and treats others as tools, as objects.
Precisely. And if you look at how these traits map onto the big 5 personality traits, which is sort of the gold standard model in psychology, the strongest correlation for the Dark Triad is with low agreeableness.
Which makes sense. They aren't nice. They're not agreeable.
They are not agreeable. But interestingly, neuroticism and a lack of conscientiousness also play a role depending on which trait you're looking at and the outcomes. Generally, high scores in these areas correlate with higher crime rates, causing social distress, and creating severe problems in organizations.
But I read something in the research that surprised me. It's not all bad news for the person with these traits, is it? There's a weird flip side where these traits actually help people function in high-stress environments.
There is, yes. While they cause distress to others, these traits are also associated with certain, let's say, positive outcomes like mental toughness. These individuals are often more willing to embrace challenges.
So the same trait that makes someone a nightmare to work for might make them the only person willing to take on a high-stakes, high-pressure project where everyone else is crumbling.
Exactly. They just don't feel the pressure the same way we do, and that complexity is what we are going to explore. We need to move past a simple good versus evil and look at adaptive versus maladaptive.
Okay, let's get into the weeds. I want to deconstruct this triad piece by piece. Let's start with the one that seems to dominate social media discussions these days. Narcissism.
Right. Narcissism is the grand one. Individuals who score high here display entitlement, dominance, and a sense of superiority.
This is the do you know who I am energy.
Very much so. But here is where it gets interesting regarding their personality profile. Narcissism actually correlates positively with extroversion and openness.
Wait, so they can be the life of the party?
Oh, absolutely. They can be incredibly charming. They are open to new experiences, and they are out there in the world. They aren't hiding in the corner.
Okay, so they're outgoing.
Very. But it correlates negatively with agreeableness. So they are charming, but they aren't kind.
That is a dangerous combination. It's
Yeah.
like, I love you, but only because you're listening to me talk about how great I am.
That's a very accurate way to put it. Now, historically, assessing this required clinical interviews. But in 1979, Raskin and Hall developed the Narcissistic Personality Inventory, or the NPI.
Go.
That became the standard for measuring this in the general population outside of a clinical setting.
And the research distinguishes between different flavors of narcissism, right? It's not just one monolithic thing.
That's a crucial nuance. The MPI mostly measures grandiose narcissism. That's the bold, I am the greatest type, the classic show-off. But there is also pathological narcissism and vulnerable narcissism, which we will definitely touch on later. But generally, when we talk about the Dark Triad narcissist, we are talking about that grandiose, entitled figure. They genuinely believe they're better than you. It's not an act.
Right, they've bought their own hype. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving to the second member, the one with the coolest name, Machiavellianism. This comes from Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance philosopher, right?
Ideally, yes. The philosophy was sort of formalized into a psychological trait by Christian Geiss back in 1970.
And what defines a high Mach, as they call them?
A high Mach is someone who is callous, unprincipled, and excessively motivated by self-interest. But the core belief, the engine that drives them, is the belief that interpersonal manipulation is the key to life success.
So it's not just that they do manipulate, it's that they believe manipulation is how the world works. Like if you aren't manipulating, you're just losing.
Correct. They have a deeply cynical view of human nature. They view people as means to an end, pawns on a chessboard.
How does this differ from the other two? Because the psychopath manipulates too, right?
They do, but the style is very different. Paulus notes a key distinction here. Psychopaths tend to be impulsive and careless. High Macs, on the other hand, are calculating. They plan for the long term. They have patience.
Okay, so the psychopath might smash a window to grab a wallet because they want it now. The Machiavellian befriends a security guard, waits 3 months, gets the code, and cleans out the safe without breaking anything.
That is a perfect analogy. Yes, Machiavellianism is about strategy. It's a cold, patient game. Low Macs, by contrast, are empathetic and believe that people are generally good.
And high Machs think low Machs are suckers.
Utter fools, yes.
That brings us to the third, and you said arguably the darkest member, psychopathy.
This is considered the most malevolent of the three. Here we are looking at low empathy, often referred to as callous unemotional traits, or CU, and high impulsivity and thrill-seeking.
And how do we spot this one? I know there's a famous checklist.
Yes, Robert Hare's Psychopathy checklist, the PCLR. Hare really revolutionized this field. He noted something very important. You can't just ask a psychopath if they are a psychopath.
Because they'll lie.
Because they'll lie, or they simply lack the insight to even understand the question. Self-reporting is incredibly tricky. However, for the subclinical population, the people we are talking about today, there are self-report scales, things like the Levinson primary and secondary psychopathy scales.
And unlike the Machiavellian who is planning that heist for months, the psychopath is linked to recklessness.
Recklessness and carelessness. They simply do not feel the anxiety or the remorse that stops the rest of us from doing dangerous or harmful things. It's like an absence of the brakes that most of us have built into our brains.
So we have the entitled narcissist, the calculating Machiavellian, and the impulsive psychopath. That's the triad. But the research suggests that 3 might not be enough. There's a hidden 4th member trying to get into the club.
Yes, there's a debate about expanding to the dark tetrad.
This sounds like a heavy metal band. What is the 4th trait?
Sadism.
Oof. Okay. Why do some researchers argue this needs to be separate? Doesn't the psychopath hurt people?
They do. But here is the critical distinction. The dark triad involves callousness and indifference to suffering. I don't care if I hurt you to get what I want. Sadism involves enjoying inflicting suffering.
That is a terrifying distinction. So the psychopath runs you over because you were in their way. The sadist runs you over because they like the sound it makes.
In a graphic sense, yes. That's the core of it. Studies show that sadism predicts unprovoked aggression better than the other three traits.
Unprovoked.
Unprovoked. It implies a specific pleasure derived from cruelty. Some experiments show that only people with sadistic traits actually felt better. They experienced a positive affect after being cruel to someone. The cruelty itself was the reward.
And does it predict behavior that the others don't?
It does. It predicts delinquent behavior in high school students separately from the others. It predicts harmful behavior against living creatures and what they call brutal amoral dispositions. So theirs is a very strong argument for the Dark Tetrad. The motivation is just different.
Now, you mentioned earlier that narcissism has different flavors. The outline mentions a vulnerable dark triad. What happens when you flip the script? Because we usually picture these people as confident and loud.
Right. This challenges the idea that these traits are always loud and grandiose. The vulnerable dark triad includes vulnerable narcissism, secondary psychopathy, and borderline personality traits.
So what does that look like in a person? How does that manifest?
Instead of the grandiose, I am the king of the world, it's more introverted, disinhibited, and hostile. They are driven by internal, embedded desires. They might be the person who is quietly seething, feeling like the world owes them something they aren't getting, and reacting with this sort of passive or sometimes active hostility.
The resentful type. The person who thinks they're a genius, but the world is conspiring against them.
Yes. While the classic dark triad is often influenced by external factors they can control, seeking admiration, seeking power, the vulnerable type is driven by these internal storms of insecurity and negative emotion.
Before we move to where these traits come from, we have to address a bit of academic drama. The jangle fallacy. I love when academics fight over terminology.
Yes, the jangle fallacy. This is a critique that suggests we might be using different names for the same thing. Specifically, are Machiavellianism and psychopathy actually distinct?
They do seem to overlap a lot. Callousness, manipulation.
They do. They share nearly identical correlations with the big five: low agreeableness, low conscientiousness. Some researchers, like McCoskey, argued way back that Machiavellianism is really just a measure of psychopathy in normal people.
A global measure of psychopathy. So a Machiavellian is just a mild psychopath, or a more functional one.
Exactly. That's the argument. Even recent studies in 2016 suggest they are almost indistinguishable in how they measure on personality tests. But the counterargument, championed by Paulus and others, brings us back to that impulse control.
Right. Machiavellian's plan. Psychopaths act. That might be the thin red line that separates them.
It's the difference between a sniper and a guy with a sledgehammer. Both destroy the target, but the method is totally different.
That's a very valid way to view it.
Yeah.
And that method matters when you're trying to spot them in an organization or in your life. One is a long-term threat, the other is an immediate one.
All right, let's get into the origin story. The part everyone wants to know. Nature versus nurture. Are people born this way, or are they made?
As with most things in psychology, it's a mix. But the ratios differ in really interesting ways. Twin studies have been huge here. We know that all three traits have substantial genetic components.
So it runs in families.
It can, yes.
Which ones are the most genetic?
Psychopathy and narcissism are more heritable. If your parents have these traits, there is a significant genetic roll of the dice there. The predisposition is stronger.
And Machiavellianism.
That is the outlier. Machiavellianism is the most influenced by the environment, specifically shared environmental factors, like parenting, or the neighborhood you grew up in.
Parenting plays a huge role. A study of German adolescents showed links between parental rejection, from both parents' punishment and overprotection, and the development of these traits.
Wait, overprotection? I would have guessed neglect. That seems counterintuitive.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But overprotection can be incredibly suffocating and controlling. It can create an environment where the child learns that direct requests don't work, so they have to manipulate to get any breathing room or autonomy.
So you're breeding a little schemer.
In a way, yes. Generally, Machiavellianism seems to be something you learn. It's a strategy you adopt based on your environment. It's a worldview you develop.
That makes perfect sense. If you grow up in a house where everything is a transaction or a power play, you learn to be a skeever. You learn that trust is a weakness.
Exactly. You adapt to the ecosystem you are in. Psychopathy might be the hardware you're born with, but Machiavellianism is the software you install based on your early experiences.
Now, this is the part that always blows my mind. Evolution. If these traits are so toxic, if they hurt the tribe, so to speak, why hasn't natural selection weeded them out? Why are they still here after thousands of years?
That is the paradox, isn't it? And the answer might lie in what's called life history theory.
Okay, break that down for us.
It posits that organisms, including humans, generally follow one of two strategies: a slow reproductive strategy or a fast life strategy.
Slow is what we think of as traditional parenting.
Slow is investing heavily in parenting, long-term pair bonding, delayed gratification, building for the future. You have fewer kids, but you invest everything in them, ensuring they survive and thrive.
Okay, and fast life strategy.
Fast life strategy is an emphasis on mating over parenting, immediate rewards over delayed ones, opportunistic behavior. It's about quantity over quality in a biological sense.
So living fast, dying young, and leaving a lot of offspring.
In a way, yes. The theory suggests that Dark Triad traits are an evolutionary adaptation for a fast strategy. If the environment is volatile or dangerous, it might make evolutionary sense to be opportunistic, to meet with as many partners as possible, and to take what you can right now because tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
That completely reframes it. So in a stable village, the nice cooperative guy wins because he builds trust. But in a chaotic war zone or a collapsing society, the Dark Triad guy might pass on more genes.
Potentially. It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy. And even in modern society, these individuals can be highly successful. They acquire resources, they attain status, which are proxies for reproductive fitness. The catch is that this success is usually short-lived.
They burn bridges.
They burn every bridge. It's a strategy that works for a sprint, not a marathon. But if you can sprint fast enough to reproduce before you burn out or get cast out, evolution keeps you in the gene pool.
Speaking of burning bridges, let's talk about these traits in the wild. Section 4, behaviors. Let's start with the workplace, because I think a lot of listeners are going to be nodding their heads here.
The workplace is a prime hunting ground. The research is very clear that Dark Triad traits are linked to acquiring leadership positions and, in some cases, better salaries.
Especially the Machiavellians, right? They're playing the long game.
Yes. If you view people as tools, management can seem like a natural fit. But what's fascinating is how they manipulate to get there. Jonathan and colleagues did a big meta-analysis on this.
What's the breakdown? How do they trick us into promoting them?
Machiavellians use excessive charm. They schmooze. They are masters of impression management. They figure out exactly what the boss wants to hear and they say it.
And the narcissists?
They rely on physical appearance. They look the part. They dress well. They groom impeccably. They walk into the room with an aura of confidence, and they just feel like a leader, even if they have no substance.
And the psychopaths?
Physical threats.
Whoa. In the office. We aren't talking about punching people in the break room, are we?
It can be very subtle. Intimidation, standing too close, a certain look, the implication of "don't cross me." It's an aggression that forces compliance through fear, not persuasion.
So they get the job. Narcissists ace the interview because they make a great first impression. But what happens once they are in charge?
Destruction of value. This is the critical warning for any hiring managers listening. A 2017 UK study found that companies with leaders showing psychopathic characteristics actually destroy shareholder value.
How so?
They tend to have poor future returns on equity. They make reckless decisions that benefit them in the short term but harm the company long term.
So they might boost the stock price for a quarter by slashing jobs or cooking the books, but in the long run, they tank the company.
Precisely. They optimize for their own bonus, not the company's health. They also engage in knowledge hiding and knowledge sabotage. They hoard information to maintain power, which cripples the team's ability to function and innovate.
Let's move from the boardroom to the internet. Trolls. We've all dealt with them. Is there a connection?
The internet troll. Yes, recent studies have found a very, very strong link between internet trolling and the Dark Triad, specifically sadism and psychopathy.
So it's not just boredom or people having a bad day.
No, trolling is described in the literature as a manifestation of everyday sadism. They're getting genuine pleasure from the distress of others online. The suffering is the point.
That explains why you can't reason with them. They aren't looking for a debate. They're looking for your pain.
Exactly. Engaging just feeds the sadism. You are giving them the supply they crave. The best strategy is to starve them of it.
What about actual crime? Not just mean tweets, but real world and cybercrime.
In the real world, high scores predict violent delinquency and interpersonal violence. But when we look at cybercrime, we see a fascinating specialization based on the traits. It's like a heist movie where everyone has a specific role.
Okay, I like that. So who does what?
A study showed that psychopathy correlates with speed, fast exploitation. They smash and grab the data. They want the quick hit, the immediate reward.
And the narcissist.
Privilege, escalation, and persistence. They want the high-level access. They want to be the admin. They want to be the one in charge.
Because of the status, the
But
power.
likely, they want to be the god of the system. And Machiavellianism, true to form, correlates with stealth, avoiding detection. They are the ones who stay in the system for months without you knowing, siphoning off data slowly and carefully.
That is wildly specific and makes total sense. Okay, let's talk about love. Or maybe love isn't the right word. Sex and relationships.
Mating strategy is probably the more accurate biological term here, yes. The Dark Triad is heavily linked to a short-term focus. One-night stands, hookups, friends with benefits.
They aren't looking for a soulmate to settle down with.
Generally, no. They are also much more prone to mate poaching.
Stealing someone else's partner.
Yes. It's a game to them, a sign of status and dominance. And interestingly, they're willing to lower their standards significantly for short-term mates. They aren't picky if it's just for the night.
Now, here's something I found contradictory in the notes. Are they attractive? Because we always hear about the bad boy appeal.
It's complex. Narcissists, yes, they are often perceived as hot or attractive.
Why? Are they just born better looking?
Likely because they put a tremendous amount of effort into it. They care about their appearance, they groom, they dress well, they go to the gym. It's part of the grandiosity. They are their own best product.
But what about the Machiavellians?
This is fascinating. They are often rated as the least attractive to the opposite sex.
Really? Why is that?
Yes, it turns out visible cynicism isn't sexy. That cold, calculating vibe is often a turnoff on a subconscious level. And facial features associated with Dark Triad traits in general, aside from the narcissist's grooming, are often rated less attractive.
So the narcissist draws you in with the polished looks, but the Machiavellian might repel you on a primal level.
That seems to be the case. Your gut knows something is off, even if you can't put your finger on it.
Let's look at who these people are. Demographics. Are men really darker than women? The stereotype is there.
The findings are very consistent across cultures. Men tend to score higher than women on narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. This is known as the Dirty Dozen data from the name of one of the popular scales.
Is that gap closing at all?
It might be for narcissism. Some data suggests women's scores have been rising over time, shrinking that gender gap. But generally, men still hold the lead, especially in psychopathy. The difference is most pronounced there.
And what about their worldviews, ideology, and politics? This seems like a minefield.
This is where we have to be careful and just report what the data shows. But it's interesting. These traits correlate with support for extremist ideologies.
Which side? Left or right?
That's the thing. It can be both. It correlates with support for the alt-right and white supremacist groups, but other studies show it also correlates with what's called politically correct authoritarianism.
So it's not about the specific policy, it's about the control, the authoritarian impulse.
Precisely. It correlates with a social dominance orientation, the desire for one's group to be supreme. Whether that group is defined by race, nationality, or a certain political correctness, the underlying drive for dominance and group-based supremacy is the link. They want to be on top of the hierarchy, regardless of what the hierarchy is.
And they also link to prejudice.
Yes. Anti-immigrant prejudice and hostility toward outgroups are positively correlated with the Dark Triad. It's an us versus them mentality, and they want to be on the winning side.
Now, I want to touch on race and generation because there is some controversy here.
There is. Regarding race, the data is very sparse and often mixed. Some studies show Caucasians scoring higher on narcissism or Machiavellianism, but others show no difference at all in psychopathy between groups. It's not a clear picture.
And we have to mention a specific researcher, Richard Lynn, whose work in this area has been debunked.
Yes, it is very important to address that. Lynn published research claiming racial differences in psychopathy, but it was widely criticized and debunked for serious conceptual errors. He confused antisocial behavior with personality traits and completely ignored critical socioeconomic factors. It's considered fringe science and is unreliable. We need to be very skeptical of data that tries to racialize these traits without accounting for environment.
Good to know. And what about Generation Me? Are kids these days more narcissistic?
Yeah.
Or do we just think they are because they have Instagram?
That is a huge debate. Jean Twenge's analysis of college students from 1979 to 2006 suggested a significant increase in narcissism.
The selfie generation narrative.
That's the narrative. But other researchers push back hard. They argue the cohort changes are minimal, or that what we are seeing is actually just an increase in cynicism, which might look like narcissism but isn't the same thing. So the jury is still out on whether we are actually becoming more self-absorbed as a species, or if we are just documenting our lives more publicly.
Okay, we spent a lot of time in the dark. I feel like I need a shower. Is there any hope? Is there a flip side to this, an antidote?
There is, and thank goodness for that. Enter the light triad.
The light triad. Tell me everything. Who came up with this?
Scott Barry Kaufman and his colleagues, they wanted to see if there was a profile for the everyday saint to counter the everyday villain. They felt psychology was too focused on the dark side.
I agree. So what are the three components of the light triad?
First, humanism. This is about valuing the dignity and worth of every individual.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, Kantianism.
Named after the philosopher Immanuel Kant.
Exactly. This is the direct opposite of Machiavellianism. It means treating people as ends unto themselves, never as a mere means to an end. You help someone because they are a person, not because they can do something for you later.
I like that. And the third?
Faith in humanity, which is just what it sounds like, believing that people are fundamentally good.
That sounds lovely. But be honest, are most people dark or light? Where does the average person fall?
That is the best news of the entire deep dive. The average person actually leans toward the light triad. We aren't all villains. Most people are fundamentally pretty good.
Phew. That restores my faith in humanity a little bit.
It should. High scores on the light triad link to life satisfaction, empathy, secure attachment styles and relationships, and a quiet ego.
Quiet ego. I like that phrase. But is there a catch? Is there a downside? Do the nice guys finish last?
There is a trade-off. It appears so. Light triad scores tend to have less achievement motive. They're less assertive.
So the dark triad guy is aggressively pushing for the promotion at all costs, and the light triad guy is happy just doing a good job and collaborating with the team.
Potentially. The lack of assertiveness might make it harder for light triad individuals to reach certain challenging goals, even if they are highly competent. The dark triad has that killer instinct that can propel them forward, at least in the short term.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the narcissist, the schemer, the psychopath, and even the sadist. We've seen how they operate in offices and relationships. What's the so what here?
I think the big takeaway is understanding the complex, sometimes contradictory nature of human personality. These aren't monsters under the bed. They are dimensions we all have to some degree.
We all have a little bit of the dark triad in us.
We might. We all have moments of self-interest or moments where we lacked empathy. But the dark triad as a concept helps us understand how bad traits can lead to successful outcomes in certain contexts and why they persist in our gene pool.
It's about survival strategies, not just morality.
Exactly. Different strategies for different environments.
So here's my final thought for you listening. Is the concept of the dark triad too simple? Maybe. Does it glorify these traits? Maybe. But look around your office tomorrow. Look at your social circle. Can you spot the difference between a high achiever who is just driven and a high mock who is moving chess pieces around you?
And ask yourself this. Which strategy actually wins the long game? The fast, explosive, but often self-destructive success of the dark triad, or the slow, steady, collaborative build of the light?
That is the question. Thanks for diving deep with us.
A pleasure. Anytime.